It is said among the bitter downs of Wiltshire, beneath skies always thick with leaden clouds, that the parish of Marrowby was not raised by fire, plague, or war, but by something older and slower, that does not go up in flames nor perish with men. In 1648 its rectory fell silent, its church was sealed, and over 2 centuries later, in the reign of Queen Victoria, it was foolishly opened again. Elias Gant came to Marrowby in the waning months of 1852, with little to his name but a suitcase of books, 2 shirts, and the tremble of age in his bones. He was 58 and freshly widowed. His wife, Margaret, had died the previous winter from a choking sickness that doctors could not name. Gant had once been a schoolteacher in Norwich, known for his sternness, his logic, and his refusal to believe in anything he could not grasp with hand or reason. Yet it was desperation that brought him to Marrowby, not belief. He answered an ad pinned to the town hall board in Salisbury: Lamplighter needed. Parish of Marrowby must attend dusk and dawn. No mention of pay. No mention of danger. He took it because he had no other offers and no coin for the train ride back east. The village itself sat in a natural basin, ringed with ancient oaks. From a distance it appeared pleasant. Chimneys puffing white smoke, sheep folded in pens, thatched roofs leaning gently into the wind. But up close, Marrowby felt wrong. There was a silence beneath its daily noise, like a breath being held too long. People spoke with downcast eyes. Children would not stray near the churchyard wall, and the vicar, Reverend Ashcombe, smiled too often, with teeth too white and a gaze too shallow, as if he saw nothing at all behind your eyes. The church stood at the north end of the village, half sunken into a slope of black soil. Its name, St. Justina in the earth, was carved in Latin above the great arch, and moss had grown over the final word so that it read, simply, Justina. Its windows were tall but narrow, slits more than panes, as though designed to watch rather than let in light. Gant's duty was to light the gas lamps that encircled the church grounds each dusk and douse them before dawn. The lamps, as he soon learned, refused to burn evenly. 3 in particular, the ones by the north transept, flickered despite calm winds, and were often found extinguished with no sign of tampering. The villagers called that wing the Watcher's Wing, though none could say why. The old church records had vanished long ago. Some claimed they were stolen during the interregnum. Others whispered they were never written. When Gant asked about it, he was told only, "Don't stray near that wall after nightfall. It's not for you." Elias dismissed it all. He had seen too much hunger, too much grief to believe in phantoms. His Margaret was buried in cold soil and had not risen. If ghosts existed, they did so in the minds of those who feared death more than they understood it. But the bell changed that. It began on the 7th night. Gant had just doused the last lamp and was returning to his rented room, above the bakery, when the bell rang once. Low, strained, and distant. It came not from the belfry, but from beneath it, a sound like a groan through a rusted pipe, mournful and submerged. He turned, startled, and watched the tower. The church stood still. The next night it happened again. At precisely 2:13 a.m. the bell tolled once. This time Gant had not yet left the churchyard. He froze, his lantern dimmed. Not flickered, dimmed, as though something had drawn heat and light from the oil. The hairs on his arms lifted. Something old stirred beneath the stone. When he questioned Reverend Ashcombe the next day, the man waved it off. The mechanism's rusted. It hasn't rung since the Restoration. Perhaps you heard an owl or a cart on the hill, but his voice was too quick and his smile too fixed. Elias grew uneasy. He began to keep a journal, as he once had in his teaching years, noting the oddities, the extinguished lamps, the damp scent in the air around the church, the way the grass never grew by the northern door. That door, tall, iron-banded, and shaped like a coffin lid, was always locked. But one morning just before dawn he found it ajar. A single muddy footprint led into the shadows beyond it. That night he waited. At 2:10 a.m. the wind died completely. The air thickened. Then, as if summoned by breath alone, the bell tolled, and something spoke. It was not a voice, precisely. More like the memory of a voice, faint, wet with age, whispered directly into the hollows of his mind as if it had always been there, waiting for the silence to return. A child's voice, high and distant, but not with the cadence of innocence. It curled through his thoughts like ivy through stone. "Elias, you lit the lamps. Now light the way." He froze, breath suspended in his throat like a prayer unspoken. The sound hadn't passed through his ears. It had bloomed behind his eyes, intimate and impossibly old. The name, his name, was uttered not with menace, but with a familiarity that stilled his blood. There was a terrible affection in it, like the sigh of a mother who had been waiting centuries for her child to come home. He turned slowly. The northern door stood open. The iron-banded wood, usually shut tight with chains and rot, now yawned inward, revealing darkness that did not merely conceal, but welcomed. Cold air spilled from the threshold, and with it came the scent of damp stone and the bitter perfume of decayed parchment. Beyond the doorway, a narrow stairway spiraled down, hewn from ancient stone, steps sagging in the middle, worn slick by countless treadings. The walls were close, sweating as if the very church were exhaling. He should have fled. Every instinct screamed for retreat. But the voice, the memory, still lingered behind his ribs, gentle and patient, as though it would not chase him, only wait. The fear that gripped him was not of what lay below, but of what might happen if he ignored the call. It was not a command. It was an invitation, and to refuse it felt impolite, not in the way one declines a stranger, but in the way one recoils from an old friend now long dead, who nonetheless reaches out with open arms. Elias stepped forward, and as he crossed the threshold, he felt the breath of something brush his neck, a sigh that smelled of candle wax and grave soil, as though something just behind him was smiling. He descended. The air in the crypt was wet, with the coppery sting of blood and salt. The walls dripped. Small alcoves lined the corridor, each housing faceless effigies in crumbling robes. Some had arms outstretched. Others held candles long melted into their hands. All faced inward, toward a chamber at the far end. There Elias found a door, black oak, covered in carvings so deep they bled shadow, mothers weeping, children blindfolded, candles with flames carved upside down. He raised his lantern. The door was already open. Inside there was no room, no walls, no ceiling. Only black. Not absence, but presence, thick, pressing, breathing. The flame in his lantern vanished with a gasp. Then came the light, not from above, but from beneath. Shapes began to rise, pale, human-like, but wrong. Limbs too long, joints bending the wrong way. Their faces were blurred like sketches left in rain. They smiled, not with joy, but as masks do. And they reached for him. The child's voice whispered again, not in his ear, but from inside his chest. "Now you belong to the Watchers." In the weeks that followed, the lamps remained unlit. Villagers spoke of odd sounds at night, laughter beneath the earth, tapping at the glass, footsteps inside sealed rooms. Reverend Ashcombe left suddenly and no replacement came. The northern door was bricked over in haste. Elias Gant was never seen again. But sometimes, on windless nights in Marrowby, the church bell tolls once at 2:13 a.m., and all the lamps, long disconnected from gas, flicker to life, just for a moment, long enough for something to see. If this story stirred something in the shadows of your mind, don't look away now. The Watchers are patient, and they know when you're listening.